Hey everybody, John Brown here again. I recently did a channel update where I also talked about my top 10 board games of the year. I have an even bigger channel update now to give and want to talk a little bit about kind of game of the year stuff that has to do with the update stuff, but we'll get to what I mean by that. It's been a lengthy year for me, a year that I was pretty much constantly on overtime. I wasn't able to work on the channel a lot, and I talked about that in my last update. But due to the money I was able to save up because of that, tax return coming in, that I've decided to, now's the time to invest in the channel. This is going to be a long-term thing. It's not going to start right away, but over the next 2 months or so, I'm planning on getting new equipment, a camera, a microphone, and also a computer that I can do a little bit better editing on. Right now, I'm doing everything on my iPad, which only allows me to do 15-minute videos. Even though my channel is verified and I can upload longer videos, I can't off the iMovie thing that I'm using. It just doesn't let me. There may be a way around it, I don't know. But it's going to allow me to do several new things. It's going to allow me to do, better quality stuff. Video and audio, better quality, better editing, being able to put it on a computer, not just using my iPad on an app. And it's going to allow me to do some additional content. For example, there's quite a few board games I play, on the iPad with the apps. I'll be able to do some reviewing of that and actually show you that, and actually put it on the computer and record that. So I'm looking forward to that. So even more board gaming content, higher quality board gaming content, and also some video gaming content. Now, but if you're just a board gamer, not into video games, please don't unsubscribe or run away or whatever. That's going to be coming down the road. And like I said, the board gaming content isn't going to stop. If anything, it's going to increase now that I have the extra time. And, I'll be more excited about doing things as I get some more tools in to be able to do better quality work. And so the board gaming stuff is going to come. And some of the video gaming stuff you may be interested in because, I want to talk a little bit about, stuff that kind of crosses over, video games based on board games, or even video games that basically are board games but are original ideas, which is something I'm going to talk about, in a minute here with kind of some of the Game of the Year video game stuff that I want to talk about. In addition to that, you may have noticed the channel name has changed. So JB's Total Gaming is to signify that yes, there's still going to be board game centric content, and I may have the possibility to do maybe some podcasts. I haven't talked to people about this yet, but I definitely have some friends who might be interested in doing something like that, or doing some recording of gaming or streaming or whatever. But the name of the channel is meant to signify that while there are a lot of places where you can get board gaming content and a lot of places you can get video gaming content, this is going to be a channel that I want to do both on. And if you're not interested in the video gaming content, just don't watch it. Or you might be surprised by something that does interest you, and please do. And like I said, it's going to be a while before that ever happens. But that is coming in the future, and there will be some content, like Hearthstone, that is, basically a game similar to Magic the Gathering, but it does stuff that you can only do electronically. It's a very different game, but similar ideas. Video games that are board games, and, just pure video gaming content, role-playing stuff, whatever I might be interested in. Overwatch, when that comes out, I'm very interested in. And if you're not into video gaming, that's fine, but, that content will be available if you choose to, and I want this to really be a channel where all of that can coexist, so that if you are a gamer like me who is very interested in gaming in general, then you have all that information. If you're only interested in one of the two aspects, then that's great, and maybe some of the crossover stuff will interest you as well. So along those lines, I also I set up a Twitch.tv thing so that I can, if you don't know what that is, it's a service that you can live stream video games, and that's also under the same name. Now, I haven't started doing that. The computer hasn't even been built yet. It's going to be a process, but I eventually have a Twitch channel under the same name of JB Still Gaming, and I just started a Twitter. Now, this is separate from my regular Twitter. I haven't followed anyone on it yet. I haven't even asked any of my friends to follow. So technically, if you watch this video, you can be the first to follow me at JB's Total Gaming on Twitter, where I eventually, as some of this stuff is coming in, will update, with when stuff's coming out, when I might be streaming, what videos may be coming out or whatever, and, just a place where, we can discuss board games. Now, I don't even have a smartphone. I'm not going to be on it a ton. I'm not going to be putting on a ton. And if you do follow me right off the bat, there's not going to be a lot of content early, but please don't unfollow yet because, like I said, it's going to be a slow build as this stuff comes in. So the channel is going to be expanding in a big way, new and more board gaming content, and also other content that you may be interested in. So that's where we're going with that. So that being said, I want to talk a little bit about video gaming in general that may interest you, and some of my kind of crossovers with video game and board gaming, and a couple of things that interested me over the past year. I did. I had kind of had this parallel. I called the pandemic legacy of video games that happened this year, and not that this is exactly a award I want to give to, but I thought it was worth mentioning that I found it super interesting. If you're into video gaming, you've probably heard about this little indie game called Undertale. And it's fascinating how similar Undertale is to Pandemic Legacy in the way it was received. Now, this game wasn't hyped. It was a small, kind of unknown thing that mostly one person, I believe, programmed. And, so it wasn't hyped at all. It doesn't, it looks like older game and whatever. But because of some interesting mechanisms in the game, it ended up getting so hyped and people just gathering around it and loving it. There was a major site that gave it its greatest game of all time. A lot of people giving it 10 out of 10s. And then in response, there was this backlash of people who, just hated it because it was so popular. Kind of like how people were going on and giving Pandemic Legacy a 1 out of 10 after it started shooting up the Board Game Geek rankings. So I just thought it was super interesting, some of the parallels there. And if you haven't heard about it, I'll say it's interesting. There are some interesting premises, some things in the game, and my feeling on it, there's some interesting characters, there are some neat concepts. I personally don't really like the gameplay of it. There's a lot of what you might call bullet hell or shmups or whatever, where you're avoiding getting hit, kind of. And the combat is pretty simple if you choose to do combat, but that I'm not going to get into it too much. And for those of you who've heard about it, you've probably heard about it too much. And for those of you who haven't, you can go check out a video on it. I also want to talk about this whole thing where recently board gaming and video gaming have been crossing over a lot. Now, if you're into board gaming, which I'm assuming you are if you're part of this channel right now as this video is coming out, then you've seen apps and things being associated with board games. Well, guess what? Video games are starting to bring in board game stuff. Instead of just making video games that are representations of board games, they're coming up with original ideas. And some of the games I wanted to mention that came out this year, there was Armello, which is basically a board game, but in video game form that is an original idea. A game I played, Druid's Duel, isn't exactly a board game. It's more of a tactical combat, but some elements reminded me of a board game, kind of a cheap, interesting game. You summon things and there's area control. It's interesting. It's one that I personally really enjoyed. There's one called Tharsis. This reminds me a lot of Elder Sign. A lot of people reviewing it are referring to it as like a Yahtzee sort of game, but maybe they haven't played Elder Sign or whatever. There's a lot of RNG, but it's kind of a space themed game where you're trying to deal with all these disasters going on. It might be worth checking out if you want to look at. And if you're familiar with board gaming, you might be familiar with Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl, kind of the second edition of the video game, came out. It was quite a bit more expensive than the original edition. It looks a lot nicer. There were a lot of problems with it when it first came out, in my opinion, but they have improved it drastically. So if you're not familiar with Blood Bowl, it's kind of like American football and turn-based tactics with Warhammer fantasy creatures. And if you don't know what that is, there's humans, but orcs and lizard men and all these different teams. And, you play, turn-based, moving guys around, but there's a lot of randomness. Players can get injured, even die as you're playing. And, it's one of those things that now that the program has improved quite a bit from when it originally came out and updated, you can use a grid and see player skills and all that, and you'll know what I'm talking about if you're familiar with Blood Bowl. It's a much better game than when it originally released. Another game I wanted to mention that has similar things to do, and Blood Bowl would probably be my board game / video game of the year. I really enjoy it, even though I can understand totally why some people hate it because of the randomness. I also want to throw in City Skylines out there. It's much more similar to a modern SimCity game than it would be like to Suburbia or something like that. But there are a lot of city building games in video games, and if that's a theme that interests you, you might want to look into City Skylines. It's basically like a modern SimCity game, but good. Because the old SimCity games were good and the modern ones kind of were terrible and too small of maps and had all kinds of issues and wanted to be online and all this stuff. City Skylines is a really neat game you might want to check out if you really enjoy city building. Lastly, if you're into board gaming, you might be into role-play gaming. Some big role-playing games came out this year, including Fallout 4. If you've never played a Fallout game, the original Fallout games way back when were more RPG focused than these. These are more combat focused. This one has kind of a base building aspect and some other things added on to it. It was good. I enjoyed it. However, I want to say the role playing game of the year for me, if you're interested in role playing games and maybe interested in playing some video games, is The Witcher 3. It is my video game of the year easily. My only problem with it is now that I'm older and have more responsibilities and less time, it was just such a massive game that that's actually almost a detriment to me. But what this game did great, not only did it have interesting story and roleplay elements, which would help if you played the first two, but you could watch a quick video on the story and kind of get an idea. Because why this game is so good is because even the side quests were good. There are side quests in this game you could have totally avoided that just had fantastic, sometimes multiple hour story arcs. There was one time in particular where I was on this mission where it seemed super boring and I was doing these fetch quests, which isn't, usually if you're doing something, there's a twist, there's an interesting thing to it. And I was like, wow, all of a sudden this game got a little bit boring in this quest, but it was all to lead into this super interesting quest, and it was kind of a setup for it, and it was almost like pulling my leg. So I gotta say, The Witcher 3, fantastic video game if you're interested in maybe looking into a role-playing game. So like I said, there's a channel update just to give you an idea of what's going to be coming in the next couple of months. Hopefully you're looking forward to it, and if you're not, like I said, still a lot of board gaming content coming out, even more than there has been, so you don't have to worry about that. And if you want to be the first or one of the first to go ahead and subscribe to the Twitter, like I said, my Twitter, like I said, I don't even have a smartphone, so I'm not going to be on it a lot, but as more content comes out, I'll be sure to be on a computer letting you know about that, and we can just talk about board games and stuff too, or if you want to talk in the comments too. So thanks for supporting the channel up so far and being with me all this time, and hopefully from this point on, in the near future, we'll be able to grow the channel much more thanks to your support. So thanks again for your support, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. Alright, bye.